Hey everybody, Matt Barton here with this week's Broker Minute or Two. Let me start off with this that's on your screen. We are serious about wanting to grow our organization, but not just grow it, but grow it with the right people. So I'm just asking, if you do a transaction with somebody that you think would be a good fit in our company, let's get them an interview with one of our ASMs, with one of our brokers, with Ron, myself, Daryl. And there's a financial incentive here, and this is going to this $1,200 cash reward. The way that will take place is on each of the first three transactions that the individual closes with the company, you will get a credit on your account for $400. So hopefully that's a little bit of an enticement. Hopefully we all want to bring more good people into this company, better their lives, and better, create a better environment for those we work with from day to day. All right, that was item number 1 in 1 minute. Okay, and call if you have any questions about that. Okay, second one is, quick story. My middle son and his wife came to my wife and I and said, hey, let's go in on an investment property. They're at a place where they want to do that. And so we looked around and eventually settled on, and I'm going to use names, but I'm telling you this applies, what I'm going to share with you now applies to pretty much all builders. My experience is a lot of times we don't read their contracts. Why? Well, because it's non-standard. It's not using typically a standard real estate purchase contract from the Division of Real Estate or from UAR, and it requires that we read. Well, you don't if you don't pay attention to this, you could end up with something inconvenient happening. So what I'm going to tell you is my quick story. So we went to D.R. Horton, a project out in Spanish Fork, and there's some townhomes out there, and we finally found one that we were interested in, and there was a $9,000 builder incentive. If you purchase a certain unit, and things have gotten aggressive because they're starting to stand on inventory because of affordability issues. And long story short, the agent there, good dude, like him, nothing wrong with the agent himself, but initially it was a financial incentive from their lender, and they were quoting a rate 1% higher than I could get through Lifetime. I was planning on using Lifetime all alone, but I wanted to see what they had to say. And when I came back to them, I said, well, unfortunately, we won't be using your lender, but we still need the credit to make this deal happen so that the numbers work. With the rate your lender quoted at negative cash flows, can't do it, etc. And I asked him, listen, if you can just switch in your contract from a lender incentive to a builder incentive, because D.R. Horton owns their own lending company, DHI, and we were waiting on that. And then I started getting pestered by the agent. He's like, listen, we need to actually get the contract signed first, and then we'll get that taken care of. And I said, well, 2 problems. 1, no, I need a guarantee that that incentive is going to be there. And 2, you guys require an $8,000 earnest money deposit. And my understanding from everybody I've spoken to is once we sign a contract, that is non-refundable. And here's literally what he said to me. He's like, actually, that's not the case. We don't advertise it, but in the financing section, you can totally back out of the contract. I said, well, I'm a contract guy. I'm just going to go read that section to make sure it says what you say it says. So over the weekend, I was looking at this, and this is what it says, right? So it says, we as the buyers, within 5 days of an accepted offer, we're going to submit a completed loan application to either their lender or our lender. And then the next section is buyer to obtain a loan approval. So no later than 15 days prior to closing date, you have to have an approval. Okay, nothing terrible there. I'm still looking for verbiage that says, if I don't, like the financing or whatever, I can back out. And so he had specifically referred to this section 626 and 627. And I got to section 627, and this is where it gets kind of interesting. So I highlighted this, right? If, right? Power of small words in contracts. If buyer fails to notify the seller on or before the loan contingency date that the buyer is terminating the agreement. Why? Because buyer cannot obtain financial approval, right? So 1, if you can obtain financial approval and you don't communicate it, then the buyer is deemed to waive its right to this agreement on the basis of failing to obtain financing. Then it goes on in this pink section. If buyer fails to provide the loan approval documentation required in 626 above and does not provide a notice of termination for failure to obtain financing prior to loan contingency date, then seller may terminate the purchase agreement, cancel escrow, and seller shall retain the deposit as liquidated damages. So let me translate. We have an affirmative obligation to go get approval. We can cancel if we don't get the approval, but there's no like explicit language that if we don't get or we're not happy with the financing or whatever the case may be, really the only out is if we don't qualify. Well, we're going to qualify. And so the moral of this story is please, please, please don't trust what the other agent says. Right? They represent the seller. They want commissions as well. And if I'd just taken him as his word of just sign the contract, that'll give us some leverage to then get these other things ironed out. That is a horrible strategy for me individually. It's a horrible strategy for your clients. And almost always when you go and actually read the contract, you see that what was actually represented by the agent isn't exactly accurate. So reminder, read your contracts. It's your fiduciary of reasonable care for your clients. If you run into something you don't understand, let's have a chat. We can typically navigate through it pretty quickly. That is your broker minute or two this week. I hope you have great success and sign many contracts.